Good afternoon. Is everyone ready to go? Thank you for coming this afternoon. We certainly had a very busy weekend managing a steady demand of calls, which has included robberies, assaults, a working fire, and several protests. We'll certainly provide more information regarding the weekend at tomorrow's briefing. My purpose today is to provide information on two events that I have contacted and referred to the Independent Investigations Unit. So the first event I'll talk about occurred just after midnight on Friday, leading into Saturday morning. A female called police for help at 5 minutes past midnight regarding her boyfriend, who she had described as intoxicated. She was worried about her toddler and her two infants that were in the suite at the time. There was a lot of yelling, a lot of commotion in the background, and reports of windows being smashed. Officers were dispatched to what was considered to be a domestic situation on Fairlane Avenue at 9 minutes after midnight. In the interim, the female caller had fled the suite to the safety of another suite within the complex. At 16 minutes after midnight, the female called back and indicated that her boyfriend had fallen down the stairs from their second floor suite and was laying in the snow at the bottom of the stairs, and that he was slow to get up. Another caller from the complex also informed call takers that the male had wandered into the parking lot but had fallen in the parking lot. The first police units that arrived on scene at 23 minutes after midnight, and they encountered the male lying on the ground in the parking lot. Other units arrived on scene at 25 minutes after midnight. So the officers who arrived, they restrained the male when they arrived on scene, and as they were escorting him to their cruiser car, he became unresponsive. Police officers stopped at that point. They called for an ambulance and they administered first aid. Ambulance arrived at 41 minutes after midnight and the male was transported to hospital. Now I want to acknowledge the efforts of all the frontline police and paramedic responders who did their best to assist. As prescribed by regulations, the IIU was informed of the call shortly afterwards. There was continual communication with them throughout Saturday, and I was informed this morning that the male had passed away during the night. So at this point, IIU has taken jurisdiction, and they'll attempt to determine what the cause of death is. I can tell you an autopsy is scheduled for tomorrow. I've had contact with the family, and I know they're grieving the sudden loss of their loved one. I certainly offer my condolences. The police will engage with IIU as soon as possible so that the family gets answers about what caused the death. Now, before I open up the questions, I'm going to briefly talk about the second event. The second event occurred on Friday evening, just after 6 p.m. in the vicinity of the Garden City shopping mall. A male was observed and reported there in the parking lot armed with an axe. He attacked a cab driver that was stopped nearby, stabbed the driver, pulled him from the cab before fleeing in the cab. Nearby police units were able to stop the stolen cab. The driver emerged from the cab and actually attempted to flee. He was apprehended by police a short distance away. Once he was taken into custody, he complained of an injury to his ankle. He was transported to hospital, and it was confirmed that he had sustained a fracture. Again, because of the injury, the IIU was contacted, and they'll investigate the nature of the injury. So those are the two things that have been referred to IIU. According to the regulations, it's prescribed. I'll try to take some questions, just bearing in mind that both of these investigations are now in the jurisdiction of IIU, just trying to provide some context for you. Certainly aware that there was some video floating around online as well.
So about that first incident, I know yesterday we called to get some more information. We were just told it was a domestic incident. Why wasn't more details, why were more details revealed then?
So a lot of it, as it transpired, I said we were in constant communication with IIU. At that point during the day, it hadn't really risen to the level of an IIU notification. It's a very prescribed thing. In this case, it really was the death that triggered the IIU jurisdiction taking over. Because he was transported to hospital, we gave IIU the heads up.
Understood. And so was there a struggle between the man and police? Witnesses are saying online that he was tased by officers.
I don't know what was being said online. I know that our officers chose to restrain the male when they encountered him in the parking lot. And by restrain, I mean handcuff. So certainly they'll account for why they did that and what occurred leading up to that. But that'll be up to IIU to determine that.
When you say he became unresponsive while they were escorting him to the car, what does that mean exactly? Like he collapsed, they were walking him over, or?
Well, I've seen a small clip online. It looks like he went limp while they were escorting him. So that's what I mean by unresponsive.
Do we know if he had any visible injuries or anything to that effect?
Certainly none that were brought to my attention. Again, that'll form part of IIU's investigation. It'll be their role to determine what the cause of death was.
And autopsy tomorrow, is that the normal speed in which we would expect an autopsy to happen?
Yeah, usually autopsies occur within a day or two for sure. The autopsy report won't come back to us. It'll go to IIU after it's completed.
And so we, in the media and the public, we likely will find out the results of that autopsy until IIU issues a release, which could be months down the line or however long it takes them to.
Yeah, I'm not sure their timeline. I think it's important that the public and the media get some context when these kind of things happen. That's my purpose here today. But the investigation will land in IIU's jurisdiction.
Was this the first instance that police have been called to this residence for a domestic call?
I'm not certain about that. We can certainly look into that, but we were definitely called, on Saturday morning.
Do you know if the man himself has been known to police before?
Not that I were aware of. I don't think he was known to us.
Are there any descriptors available, like the age of the man or his relationship with?
So I don't want to sound like I'm being difficult. It's not our role to release that now. So I expect probably tomorrow. Again, I can't speak for IIU, but they need to notify next of kin. So I would expect this person will likely be identified probably sometime tomorrow. I know it's a male. I know he's 35 years old. That's about all I know at this point.
And then I've noticed just efforts from police to host press conferences, to be a bit more transparent about things that are happening. Is that in response to kind of videos that are circulating around, or is there an effort ongoing from Winnipeg Police Service to be more at the forefront when incidents like this happen?
Yes. So certainly we're aware that things can occur or be captured in little snippets online, and a whole narrative could take off without anybody really knowing what occurred. I think it's important that we try to provide some context, but also respecting the fact that IIU still has to investigate it. So it's a balancing act between trying to provide enough information to the public, but respecting the integrity of the investigation.
And we've seen a few recent cases where people are restrained and then either injured or pass away from some cause while restrained. Is there a need to kind of look at restraint practices or to adjust how officers are approaching those situations? Or where do you stand on that, Chief?
So we do a lot of training around officer safety and the use of force. Handcuffing is often a pretty normal thing for restraint. Really comes down to some judgment at the time of what they're encountering. We train our officers to be mindful of de-escalation. Certainly in this case, they pivoted and provided first aid and called an ambulance as soon as they recognized the situation. So every situation is a little bit different. Officers are trained to manage it depending on what they encounter in the field.
Do you know if the female in this situation did she suffer any injuries or what's her
None that I'm
status?
aware of. She was able to flee from the suite and take shelter in another suite. That's where we're at with that. So no one was injured. The children weren't injured either.
Was the child with her when she fled? Or?
So there are 3 children that we know of. There was one that she was quite concerned about, but I understand they're all fine.
Go ahead, any final questions?
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.